So I have now added another book to the ever-growing list of gothic horror books that I love and question where these books have been all my life. The answer is unwritten because this book has not been released yet. I was able to get an advanced reader copy thanks to NetGalley. Corinne Lee Clark and David Demchuk for letting me experience their upcoming book, The Butcher's Daughter, the hereto untold story of Mrs. Lovett. So, if I'm able to get this posted on May 4th, like I'm trying to, this book will be releasing in 2 days on May 6th, 2025. If you want to pre-order or purchase this book, I have a bookshop through bookshop.org, an online bookshop retailer that supports local independent bookstores. And if you order this book through my affiliate link, you can support this channel and get an amazing new book along with it. Okay, to the review now. I think at the top of this, which I forgot to write in my script, is Mrs. Lovett is one of the characters from the play and movie Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. I'm going to put that there for now. If you're not aware of that, it's a great movie. It's a great stage play. And this kind of plays on a prologue for Mrs. Lovett to that movie play thing. So usually I like to have the book in my hand when I listen to audiobooks because it often helps me focus when I don't think I could, because I just start doing other things and I forget to read, or I start like skimming over words. But I like to have both usually. But this time I didn't have the book because I got an advanced listener copy for the audiobook. But somehow this did not bring down the narrative, which is interesting for me because usually it's a little bit harder for me to understand the narrative without both things. When I want to read this again, which I will probably read this again, which is also unusual for me because I usually don't reread books. I like to have them on my shelf if I really love them, but I have not reread a book. But for this, I would probably want the physical book because I've seen the inside of the book and it has an interesting layout. It's like it's written in letters and, news articles and things like that. So I'd probably want the physical book for it. But the audio is really good too. If you're a fan of Sweeney Todd, I'm going to give you a couple mild spoilers for this. Sweeney Todd is not really in this book. He's like at the end, and like about 1/4 of the book has Sweeney Todd in it. It's not like the Tumblr sexy man Johnny Depp kind of Sweeney Todd. He's like a giant man and he's like really bushy and really burly, which you would expect out of someone who's a serial killer, honestly. But yeah, he's not like Johnny Depp sized. He's a big man and he's very large and imposing. And I will say that because it's written from a certain perspective, that is not surprising. I'm going to have mild spoilers in here and then bigger spoilers later because it's hard to talk about this book without some spoilers. And because of the format this book is written, it feels like you would these things that you're learning about are things that you'd find in a journalist's bag or like someone who writes biography, because of its written letter form. Like I said earlier, it was written between Margaret Evans to Emily Gibson. Margaret Evans is writing from the inside of a priory from someone who you might think is a nun or someone who is a part of the church as they present themselves. But it kind of turns on its head pretty quick because Margaret Evans is not who she claims to be. Margaret starts out her life living with her parents in a butcher shop. They're not rich by any means. They have a hard but honest living. But there is a point where a young boy gets into an accident right outside the butcher shop, and Margaret does her best to save him. Without any thoughts, she runs inside with the boy and just chops his leg off to try to save him from dying. But she's not a doctor. She's like a young lady. They don't say an age, but she's a young lady. She's not a doctor. She doesn't know to tourniquet the leg. She doesn't know any of that kind of thing. She just chops his leg off without any thought. She tried her best. They cart the boy away. In the crowd who is watching her do this, there is a doctor that gives her parents his card and tells them if they're ever interested, he would want a girl like Margaret with him in his household as a maid. And he's willing to pay for her services and offers a well-to-do life outside of a gore-soaked butcher shop. Like in Sweeny Todd, there's a lot of blood and a lot of gore. But I feel like it's handled a lot more artfully than reading something that's like a full splatterfest or like extreme horror, because it's not extreme gore, but there's a lot of descriptions of blood, guts, and other bodily things that can get your stomach a little weak. I think that it's explained in such a way that it doesn't come off gaudy, if that's the right word for it. Gaudy. There are explanations of anatomical dolls, resurrectionists, old medicine like potassium bromide for sedation that were used in the 1800s, which I feel like they had a great historical context on some of the things in the book, but also they did add to the end of the book that they were not going to tell history verbatim. If you want exact history, you're not going to get that here, because they really tried to make it a little bit more fantastical and interesting. So you're going to have to suspend some disbelief when reading this book, which is pretty easy to do. There are some things that I have issue with in this book that are just character changes, and I have a bone to pick with those, but I will deal with that later. That's not for right now. That's for the spoiler section. But do trust me when I say the things that I don't like about this book are all just me nitpicking, because it is a very good reimagining of this story. It's written super well. It's written very engaging. I am in love with the way that it was written, because it kept my attention, which is hard to do. I wish sincerely that I had the actual physical book to go along with the audiobook, because there's sometimes where they have dates of things that happened at the beginning of chapters, or I don't know if I would call them chapters. They're like pseudo chapters where it's just kind of telling you like there's a break in time now. And me and numbers don't get along. So when it's being narrated to me, I can't catch what the numbers were. And I'm not going to write them down, because I just didn't want to. I'm sure if you wrote them down and tried to like piece it together like that, you would understand it, but I couldn't catch the numbers very quickly. The audiobook uses a few different voice actors in different sections to kind of differentiate between who was writing said article. Like sometimes Emily Gibson's father, who's the reporter, will send her letters, and it's voice acted by a man, so you can tell that it was a male person sending it to Emily. This differentiation in voice actors really did help with who was writing Margaret's letters at the time. Because there's a point in the book where a nun named Catherine is writing the letters for Margaret. Halfway through, Margaret starts writing them herself, and the tone of the narrator completely changes from pretty eloquent and soft-worded, who was the sister writing, and then to Margaret, to this kind of unhinged, like, woman that was basically from the slums, and her voice just changes, and I thought it was really interesting to hear the voice change. Unlike with some dramatizations, it doesn't go into the dramatization field because it's not voice acted like throughout. It's just changing narrators. But it's not cringy. Because sometimes dramatizations can be kind of cringy for me. I can't listen to some of them. It was really good. I like that. I like that you can hear how unhinged she was getting as the letters were going on in time. Here comes the spoilers. If you don't want to hear the spoilers, I'm going to leave you guys a timestamp right here. Right here. And the banner will be up. And I'm going to leave a banner that says spoiler section up the whole time. So if you scrub through the timeline, you can see it. But I'm going to try to make it, to break it up into chapters on YouTube. But I don't know how to use YouTube. Oops. And I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to give it my best shot. Okay. Spoilers down. And now. I've been talking a lot about Margaret Evans. These letters from Margaret Evans are from Mrs. Lovett. And god damn it, I know that it was supposed to be from her and it's kind of implied that it's about her, but I was so blindsided by that. I was so blindsided by that for no reason. I was like, "Oh my god, Margaret Evans is Mrs. Lovett? What the heck?" And I'm like, duh, who the hell else is going to be telling Mrs. Lovett's story? But I don't know. That was one of I put it in the spoiler section because I was surprised. Speaking, I think it was just because I wasn't reading the subtext of the book. Speaking of subtext, though, there are many nods to the villainous shit that the Doctor character does in this book that are laced throughout this book, and I just love it because it's so interesting to kind of have the foreshadowing in the background. It didn't make me feel stupid when things are brought up from the past that never really repeats itself. It's always like, hey, it kind of casually, it mentions there was a skeleton missing a leg. And then later on, they bring up who the skeleton was from, why it was missing a leg. And I was just happy that I could remember that. And I feel fulfilled that I remembered that there was a skeleton. And it was mentioned chapters before, but they didn't make it feel like I was being handheld. I don't like being handheld when there's a mystery to be had. Having Mrs. Lovett have this massive backstory where it's like seeped in blood and focused around the abuse from the person that was her employer makes so much sense. And I just like that she was in the medical profession. Like, I don't even know if it was that long. I think it was just for a little while, but having her be in the medical profession and being able to be a butcher as well is just, I like that kind of narrative. It was very interesting for me. There's a massive conspiracy around the book, which includes the Freemasons, which makes sense to how they could cover a lot of criminal activity around the people who are basically torturing Margaret her whole life. I think that's where the suspension of disbelief comes from. You have to kind of, if you know anything about the Freemasons, I don't know how true any of it would be historically, or I don't know how much historical accuracy is there. I don't know anything about the Freemasons. I'll just put that down there. But if you're somebody who studies the Freemasons and stuff like that, maybe you won't have as good of a time. I'm not sure. I can't speak too heavily on that. I could speak on the medical profession thing because I did do a lot of research on historical medicine. So I did like that part because it was accurate. And I liked that. I'm going to make a bunch of quick notes about the things that bothered me. They're all nitpicky. I think they're nitpicky because it changes the story that's from the play. I don't know how I feel about that. Sweeny Todd has a son and a wife in this book, over a wife and a daughter. And Joanna is not his daughter in this. And because of the perspective of the narrator, I assume that she came out more snooty and cruel because that's how Mrs. Lovett saw her. Toby is not a young boy. It's actually Margaret's lover from the time she spent attending the women in a brothel, and the girl's name was Afra, which has some nice hearing impaired representation. There's sign language usage, but the whole point of Afra being basically cutting her hair off and calling herself Toby was kind of weird to me. I don't know why the authors decided to go in this direction, but I mean, I guess I can see where the twist comes from, where they think Mrs. Lovett dies at the end because they find Afra's dead body at the end and they think that's Mrs. Lovett so she can get away with stuff. Yeah, I guess that might be why that is, but also I just didn't like that they kind of removed Toby from the scene completely. The whole ending basically kind of gave Mrs. Lovett a good ending because she didn't die. She got to find her son again. She got to all these things, and I was kind of like, I like when people have kind of a tragic ending to their stories. I think sometimes, and I felt like this deserved a kind of more tragic ending, but it is what it is. If you like lighthearted endings where people get stuff that they want, that's good for you. But for me, I'm not sure how I felt about that one. How much do I want to spoil this? Nah, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. I'm not going to say that part. Haha. So honestly, that's all I have for spoilers that I want to talk about. There's a couple other spoilers in there that I would talk about, but I think that those are best left for the book because there are a couple things that are very interesting, but I want you to read it, so I'm not going to spoil those things. The book was a good mystery on how Mrs. Lovett went from point A to point Z in her life without, paraphrasing the whole book. I feel like this is what I can give you without paraphrasing the whole thing because I want you to read it. Spoilers over. Welcome back from the spoilers. I would give this book a 5 out of 5 stars because I really liked it. I really, really hope you guys want to pick it up when it releases in a couple days. Hello, it's Editing Serial. Haha, this is the second time I had to record this because I forgot to turn my microphone on. Anyway, I do have to add quite a few trigger warnings here. So if you cannot handle a lot of gore, talks about abortion, forced artificial insemination, drugging, stalking, murder, suicide, and imprisonment, this book might not be for you. Because at the end of the day, it is a horror book, and I'm not sure if the actual novel has a trigger warning list in the front of the book. I don't have a physical copy of the published version. Okay. Bye-bye. Back to past serial. Bye-bye-bye. I loved Sweeny Todd. It was something I really cared about when I was a musical theater kid. And hearing this retelling didn't make me feel like they messed it up in any way. Despite what I said about the character changes, I don't think they messed it up. I think that it was interesting enough to stand on its own, but also lean on Sweeny Todd as the play itself. Like, I think that it could be both things. I think it's a very good look at the life of a woman in London from that time period, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did, because I really want to reread it, which is super rare for me. I don't usually reread things. I said that already. If you want to see more of me, I stream most weeknights on twitch.tv/serialeatervt. If you want a more in-depth schedule, that'll be on my card, and all of that is going to be linked in the description below. Man, I want to watch that movie again, too. But now I can't get that image of a massive dude being Sweeny Todd out of my head either. I'm not sure how I will, look at Johnny Depp and go, that's Sweeny Todd, after I read that book. Anyways, two things can be true at the same time. Anyways. Bye-bye, YouTube. Have a good day. Goodbye.